So, as we draw towards the end of the decade, Spotify, the biggest streaming service in the world, is allowing users to start sharing their streaming information to give people an idea of what genres you're listening to and who your favourite artists are. I shared mine and ultimately got into a long discussion with someone on Facebook on the subject of Spotify and how unfair their dealings are with the artists that provide content for them. In fact, you may have seen the following image shared widely across social media. Now, as you can see from looking at this, what this tells you is that in 2018, Spotify brought in $1.37 billion of revenue and were paying artists on average $0.0037 per stream, meaning that you would need to generate 1.1 million streams or so in order to raise yourself the average US minimum wage, which of course is a lot of streams. Now, I understand you look at those numbers and you absolutely say, well, something isn't right here. But today, what I want to do is I want to look at the other side of this argument. Now, first of all, it's worth pointing out that these stats have changed. Spotify's streaming, the amount they pay per stream has gone up over the last year. It's still nowhere near where you would like it to be, and this is something that hopefully is going to evolve over the next few years. It's actually very, very difficult to find the exact stats of how much money Spotify pays per stream, and that's because Spotify and record labels and publishers tend to keep these under wraps. And from speaking to a lot of my contacts in the publishing industry, it seems to be that that's because the record labels take the lion's share of the profits, and the publishers themselves get such an astonishingly low amount of revenue from these that these are not the kind of stats that they want published unless you you start fixing those things. So let's see where those go. Now, Spotify and streaming, or just streaming in general, of course, this is such a modern concept. If you go back to the very beginning of recorded music, this, believe it or not, was something that was extremely controversial among a certain section of the music performing community. And of course, it makes sense, right? If you make a living as a performer, if you go out and you play in bars, you play in cocktail lounges and all of the things that were going on around the sort of 1890s when Thomas Edison invented the wax cylinder phonograph thing before phonograph recordings became extremely popular. If that was how you were making a living, then the concept of recording your music and then essentially removing the need for people to pay to see you live is absolutely something that many, many artists were absolutely against. There were people that did not want to record because they didn't want to do themselves out of work. And when you think about it, that absolutely makes sense. I can totally understand why people might make an argument like that. And looking back, we can also say that that probably was the wrong argument to make. Though at the time, of course, it was probably a perfectly reasonable argument. It's worth pointing out that between 1890 and 1910, according to the Smithsonian, that actually the rise in phonograph sales pushed music performance, music teachers and performers, people learning the instrument up by per capita about 25% in the US, which is an astonishing amount. Who would have thought that the advent of the phonograph was going to result in such a dramatic increase in business for teachers and for people learning music and going on to perform music. What I'm really getting at here is that the music industry has always been a terrifying place and it's constantly been evolving. And as artists, it's been our duty to do our best to evolve as best with it. Because what you tend to find is that people that dig their heels in and don't want to evolve with things very quickly get left behind. The whole illegal download argument of 10, 15, 20 years, but been a long time now, years ago, ultimately that really came down to the record labels really digging their heels in and not wanting to budge. They were on a gravy train and had been on a gravy train for so damn long that the idea of lowering the value of music so you could get music to more people was a concept that they didn't want to get on board with. And again, this makes sense when you look at the history of the industry. Actually, here's a really interesting fact for you. So if you look back to early radio, it was actually music publishers that were paid the most money. Legally speaking, when radio first came out, it was totally legal for a radio station to go and purchase a record and then play that record on air. And the only person that was needed to be compensated for that was the composer of the song, not the owner of the record. And of course, that took many years of legal arguments to have that change and have copyright reform. So music and the business side of music is an ever-evolving form. And it's very interesting to me, actually, because the idea that Spotify in particular is ripping artists off, and that's not the way that the music industry has always been, to me is a laughable concept. If you look back to the very birth of the record industry or the recording industry, what you tended to find were artists that didn't know anything about business. Of course, they're artists, they're song composers, they're performers, would be put into contact with businessmen, people that had money and people that knew how to make money. And what would tend to happen is the artist was taken advantage of. This isn't up for debate. You can look at artists, well, you actually can't. Artists like Blind Blake, awesome, absolutely wonderful solo blues guitar player. Good luck finding any information about him other than the one picture that I believe we have. What happened to him? Who knows? The record label didn't even go to the effort of recording his actual details, like who he was. They just brought him in, they paid him a pittance for his recordings, and then they went on to make a fortune from his art. That was the way that the record industry absolutely always worked. In fact, you can find many interviews over the years that will talk about how the record industry essentially was about keeping details from the artists, because the last thing that you wanted was for the artists to fully understand how much money that they were generating from what they were doing, because then it removed their incentive to work. And that's insane, right? Because, of course, it is the record industry, they are doing their thing, but without the artist, you don't have a product to sell. You need the artist. It is so important that you have the artist. So that sounds a lot like Spotify, right? Now, what you found around the phonograph period is that live music just kept increasing, but kept becoming more popular. And the same thing is true in today's day and age. Live music in the US has increased 4.7% year on year for the last few years, which of course isn't massive, but it is showing the idea that the music industry is changing. And now we come on to the real subject. How important is Spotify? Today's video is brought to you by DistroKid, and for those of you unfamiliar, DistroKid is one of the leading service providers in allowing artists such as yourself to upload your music to all of the big streaming sites and all of the download sites for as little as $20 a year. And actually, if you use the code in the description, you'll get 7% off of that. And you can't say better than that. The competitors out there will often charge you double that to upload a single album. Oh, did I mention that with DistroKid you can upload unlimited albums? That is absolutely incredible value for money. And if you are wanting to get your music out there, I cannot recommend another service as effortless as DistroKid. And you get to keep 100% of the royalties. You are not going to get a better deal than this, guys. If you are looking to release your own music, get in that link in the description now. While I'm here, I do want to just briefly show you how easy it is to upload your music. I'm currently logged into my DistroKid page, and when I click on the upload, it's as simple as selecting what stores that you want everything to upload to, how many songs you'll be releasing, putting all of your artist information in, naming all of your tracks, and putting the prices in for everything. Now, I just want to draw attention to one key little detail, and that's how plugged in DistroKid seemed to be with all of the music stores, being able to detect the fact that Levi Clay is already a listed artist, and to make sure that my music gets listed under the correct artist. Doing the same with Apple Music. When I actually submitted my album artwork, it was initially rejected, and they gave me a full email explaining the problem, and ultimately it was totally my fault. I had put artwork in that you could clearly see the words Hellcat Molly in the artwork, and they said it seems that the artwork doesn't represent the name of the artist, and most stores will take issue with this. Would you like to fix it? So giving me that option and helping me fix that, absolutely cannot say better than that, really. In the past, I'm absolutely certain that if I'd uploaded that to other services that I have used, what would happen is they'd say your artwork's been rejected, sorry about that, and you would just have to keep trying again until you found something that worked. So the service with DistroKid, absolutely amazing. As I say, please do check out that link in the description and get yourself 7% off and get your music out there today. Get it heard by as many people as possible. You deserve it. You owe it to people to get your music out there as easily as possible. So one more time, huge thank you to DistroKid. I love you guys, and on with the video. Now, for those of you that have been watching my channel for a long time, you will know that integrity is the most important thing to me. It's the thing I value more than anything else. I want you guys to know that everything I tell you comes from the heart. It's something that I honestly believe, is something that I honestly feel. I stand behind everything that I say to you guys. And I have no interest in working with a company that I don't personally either use or as a service or as a product and can personally recommend. So when I got speaking to the guys at DistroKid, the idea of promoting what they were doing and trying to help you guys out with that was something that didn't really interest me unless I could give the service a test run. And so that's exactly what I did. Now, this got me thinking about music in general and how it's best to release music in this generation, in the ever-evolving form of the music business. And I thought to myself, well, actually, in the grand scheme of things, I don't hugely value downloads of music. I don't hugely value iTunes. I don't hugely value other services where you can download music, because I find that as consumers, we value music so low now, it has such little monetary value that people aren't willing to pay for it. Of course you're not willing to pay for it. You would much rather stream it on Spotify and pay nothing for it. And I'm not having a go there. I totally understand that. I totally respect that. That's the evolving music industry. So what I have done is I have put together and re-released my old four-year-old album, Out of the Ashes, and I've re-released it as a complete collection. So this contains both Out of the Ashes, which is the Hellcat Molly album that features vocals. It's a full heavy metal recording type thing. Super proud of that album, absolutely love it, along with a bonus track of Forever Again. And then also as part of this collection, I've included Into the Whiskey, which was a bonus album that I released at the same time as Out of the Ashes, which contains all of the songs from Out of the Ashes, but now without vocals, but now switching out those vocals for me playing lead guitar in their place and having guest solos from a bunch of my friends. So you've got some incredible artists on here to check out, of course, Martin Miller and Jack Gardner and Cameron Allen. The list goes on. Check it out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And I've also included the Guitar Souls theme, the full-length version of that, which isn't all that long, but again, it's nice that it's out there for you guys to actually access. So why am I bringing this to your attention? Why have I decided to do this? Why have I decided to put the album up for purchase for the lowest price humanly possible? It's because I don't expect in the slightest anyone to actually pay any money for this album. And as an artist, I don't care. As an artist, what's the most valuable thing to me is making art, making things that people can enjoy. I would so much rather that 10,000 people listened to my album and I didn't get a penny than 100 people listened to it and all paid £20 for it. I'm not interested in the financial gain behind my art. What's important is the expressing myself. What's important is letting people hear what was important to me at the time of these recordings. Now, of course, that's me personally. Evidently, you can see my views on streaming in general. I believe streaming is very, very important. I think it's the most important way to reach the market. And of course, I am aiming to reach as many people on Spotify as possible and not make money from it, because as a musician, but also a businessman myself, the onus is on me. The onus is on me to then take what's available to me and then to monetize that in other ways. Now, of course, my channel is, supported by Patreon. I have my transcription business. I sell books and I have instructional DVDs, etc., etc. The music is the art. And if people want to check that out, that's fantastic. I'm never, ever going to ask people for money for the music, because it's much, much more important to me that you just listen to the music. You hear what I'm about as an artist. You hear my expression. So, is Spotify a good thing for the music industry? Well, ultimately, that one is going to come down to you as an artist. It's going to come down to your ability to monetize this further. You will find plenty of artists out there complaining about not making enough money from Spotify. And I totally understand and respect their views. They're not wrong. You absolutely should be able to make more money on Spotify. I think that you should be able to make more money on Spotify. And I hope that that's something that gets rectified over time. But then you also have to look at bands like Wolfpack, who released the Silent album on Spotify. They looked at the situation and they worked out a way that they could use the system to their advantage. And those guys have gone on to form a fabulous kind of niche in the industry for themselves, where they're able to go out and tour and make good money selling tickets and selling merchandise because they got enough people to listen to their music on Spotify. Now, again, that doesn't make them right. I'm just saying that I personally fall in that camp. I'm not right. It's just how I feel. The most important thing to me is about you guys hearing my music. So please do head to the links below to check out the Out of the Ashes complete collection, and please do let me know your feedback. I would be honoured to hear your feedback and to engage with you guys on this particular subject. Now, while you are in that description, you are going to notice that link to DistroKid. Please do use that VIP link if you want to sign up to DistroKid and get yourself a nice little discount. It lets them know that you were sent by me, and yeah, you can get your music out there as easily as I have. Again, this was effortless. I uploaded the tracks to the website, clicked go, and everything was taken care of. Could not be happier. So, what do you guys think about the subject of Spotify? Do you think that Spotify is taking advantage of artists? And are you aware that YouTube pays almost 10 times less than Spotify does per stream? I would love to know your thoughts on the subject of Spotify and how you think the music industry is going to evolve over time. Are we going to look back on the Spotify generation 100 years from now and think of the guys that were resistant to the concept of putting their music up for stream on Spotify? Are we going to look at those guys in the same way that we looked at artists that weren't interested in recording their music at the advent of the recording industry? Very interested to know your thoughts. Lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you to some of my supporters over on Patreon. You can check me out, the link in the description, to support the channel for as little as $1. That is very much appreciated. You can head on over to Amazon and check out one of my books, because I'm not going to make any money on Spotify, right? But if you do want to check out one of my books, that is very much appreciated. And of course, I want to say a huge thanks, not just for supporting the channel, but also for helping me get my music out there again and having it on every possible store with such little effort. So DistroKid, massive thank you, massive thank you. Check them out, guys. They rock, and yeah, I'm a big fan. So click this button up here to check me out on Patreon. You can subscribe by clicking this button down here, and you will see 2 more of my videos here and here. Cannot wait to engage with you in that comment section below, guys. Much love, and I will see you for another video soon. Now go check that album out. Latest.